So we now have Andrew Eddy joining us. He's the founder of Untapped, and we've also got Peter Matthews, who will present on the topic, Be Your Best, Life Training Skills. So Peter is an author and a neurodiversity advocate. He's received a degree in communications after being told he may never speak, and became a radio interviewer after being told he would never be able to hold a conversation. And he has several other forbidden hobbies. We very much look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here and to be here with Andrew as well. Andrew, before we get started, did you want to start us off?
I do, yes, thank you. So I'll just say a few words and then I'll pass to Peter. Originally, this session was going to be run by Autumn O'Connor, who's our executive editor, and Peter Matthews is the acting executive editor at the moment. Autumn had a baby son on Tuesday, so she sends her best, and Peter's kindly stepped in to run the session with us, so thank you, Peter. I'm just going to say a few more words. So all of this work that you're going to see and the work that Peter and Autumn have done really came out of the Neurodiversity Hub initiative and the idea of the need for developing life skills training for neurodiverse individuals, either students or those entering the workforce, just really trying to provide some materials that could go alongside the academic work that they would do to give them those life skills that they may not have had the chance to gain. So we've put together this whole range of activities, and I'm now going to we'll go through some slides, but I'm just going to pass to Peter to take us through those.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, it's excellent to be here and on such good conditions. You know, Autumn, of course, was meant to be here, and then all of a sudden she finds herself with a child. It's very exciting. And yeah, so I'm just going to talk from my heart is the way we planned. You know, I don't have any great rhetoric for you, so I'm afraid I'm just going to have to be honest with you and tell you what I think of my experience and what it's been like kind of creating these kinds of initiatives that we've spent, you know, the last decade and in fact longer putting together. And of course, a lot of that comes down to life skills. Now, honestly, when people look at the structure of our education, you know, our companies, our pedagogies, one of the, if not the major question I get is, why is it all about life skills? You know, shouldn't you be teaching people how to work? You know, those skills in the office? And I'm sure a lot of you already have figured out the answer, which is that life skills, you know, they come into the office, they come into work situations constantly. And most importantly, they, in my experience anyway, and certainly the experience of the people who work for me, they get you the job. You know, neurodiverse people, their biggest hurdle is the job interview, the interview process, which takes on so many stages that we don't talk about because we think this stuff is intuitive, I suppose. Those rounds and those emails, those back and forths, those subtleties. We kind of try to teach that from the ground up. So I'd say we spend about 50% of our output, which, you know, comes to 50% of our writing, you know, 50% of our effort, our brain power. We spend 50% of our time asking ourselves, how do we, you know, get people work? And the answer is, as I say, 50% of the time, life skills. And we focus on this because there are so many lacks of understanding. You know, neurodiversity, of course, is so nebulous. And it's because our life skills are underrated and overrated at the same time, I've found. So, for example, autism, we'll take the main example that seems to be thrown around here. And people seem to think of it as the stereotype, you know, we were talking earlier today about how the neurodiversity empowerment seems to have begun with Rain Man coming out of Hollywood. Certainly most of us attribute it to that moment. At the same time, of course, this is savant syndrome that people saw. This was 1 in a million, as opposed to, I don't know, between 60 and 40 of, of every, what is it? Sorry, 1 in every 40 to 60 probably is on the autism spectrum as we know it. And yeah, a stereotype of that is that they are these extremely inhibited geniuses who can't hold a conversation. In fact, everyone I work with is extremely good at conversation. They have this learned skill, this refinement that you see in very few people because they've had to work at it. I can say from experience, you know, I built myself from the ground up and figured out, you know, what people respond to as opposed to figuring it out organically, as most people do. The overrated part, of course, women, you know, they present the symptoms as we know them far less. Of course, that may be partly as a result of the problematic research that we relied on for so long, where it was all, you know, young men. I'm sure, you know, the people involved in this conference have said an incredible amount about that in the last 10 years. What else can I say? Like, I suppose this movement of teaching life and work skills together seems to have begun around, I suppose I know of it starting around 5 years ago. I remember having a lot of admiration for it and wishing it was around when I was quite young and, you know, getting out of school. In fact, I was pushed out of school because I was in the too hard basket. I remember seeing that Harvard Business Review article about how neurodiversity is a strength. You know, it's an edge, and employers, as we young people say, shouldn't sleep on these people because, you know, they kind of built the future and of course had built the present. As people like Bill Gates suddenly were revealing that that they're on the spectrum. And of course, having a good social life, a comfortable life outside of work is crucial to conducting yourself in the workplace. You know, I mean, it really is little things. It's, you know, being able to go to a bar and recognize people. It's, you know, having a conversation with your neighbors. It's, you know, the mere presence of another person in your house. Of course, these are little things that we don't even think about. You know, we mention them so little in life that we don't realize we need to teach them to people. And of course, because people like me go so long without realizing this is something that that neurotypical people share in their life experience, we don't know to ask for it. So yeah, this has taken on so much trial and error. You know, there's been so much community effort, in fact, grassroots effort, which, you know, blows my mind in the year 2020 that we have this grassroots autism community coming together online and in person, in fact, to share these things and figure out, I suppose, a really precise itinerary of things that people like Untapped can pass on. I feel like we should move on, Andrew. Do we have the next slide?
You go.
The life skills problem, of course, in my opinion, this goes both for neurodiverse people and the educators. You know, the lack of knowledge, as I was saying, you know, figuring out exactly what we need to know, and that leads to the lack of rapport, the lack of understanding, I suppose, separation from on the part of, say, a facilitator, a teacher, an employer, a parent, the neurodiverse experience. And of course, the neurodiverse person's inability to explain in pinpoint detail what it's like, because we don't know what it's like being neurotypical. That does lead to the disadvantages that that we see, and it's just incredible what a big impact that has. For example, the gigantic disadvantage in getting work in the first place, as I was saying. I mean, the figures are just enormous. I mean, like the vast majority of autistic people are missing out. You know, I have quite a few not just autistic people, but of course there are the comorbidities. You know, if I talk about that, we'll be here all night. But like neurodiverse people, like most of my friends don't have jobs, and they are the smartest people I know. And this really surprises me. But I suppose when I look at our co-workers, you know, the people I've met over the last year working in this company, I realize that a lot of them don't find their feet until they've found their niche, which, I mean, sounds so obvious. For example, if you run a business, you know, the riches are in the niches, etc. But being an employee is an extremely different matter. Like you, I suppose that that disadvantage comes from not understanding the argot of just conducting yourself professionally. I'm not just talking about the speech that we use, but the mannerisms, how far away you stand from another worker as opposed to a friend. You know, even if, for example, at work you share a lot of experiences with each other. You know, a lot of your day is built around rapport and getting close to people. In fact, closer to people, I'd say, than you do with a lot of your acquaintances to moderate friends. You know, we have these memes and jokes in society about how you know, you go to work, you spend 8 hours with someone, and they might become your the work spouse is a word that's thrown around a lot, and it doesn't seem to occur to people that, you know, this joke has just a grain of truth in it, because we really get so close. We really synchronize our experiences and our mannerisms, and we learn so intensely from other people. And we take that into account by, I suppose, for example, we have a few relationships courses that we're just in the late stages of right now. And we actually explain in work and in life how you interact with a person. And they're extremely different. I've learned so much, not just from reading what people come up with, but by facilitating these courses. Like, I mean, that cliche, you know, the kids taught me too. It's gone extremely in this case, because I'm sure, as I'll get to in just a moment, you know, the wealth of experience of neurodiverse people is not just gigantic, but so unpredictable, because we all learn irregularly. You know, we all learn in extremely different ways, and this is because of executive functioning issues and other, for example, social things like my own example, you know, being kind of encouraged by the higher ups at my school to leave because, you know, they didn't want to teach an autistic kid. This was in a rural area in 2004, so like it was a little less outrageous back then. But yeah, this has led to us kind of being very good at some things, and at others we may conduct ourselves fine, but we still need a few of those essential lessons. And this is the knowledge we try to fill in. I'm sure there's something else I can say about this, which would be that, in my opinion, certainly when you're speaking in an academic sense, which we do quite often in the work, you could probably swap these first two around. You know, this it probably begins with a lack of understanding, not just the lack of rapport, but, you know, the sciences are based on philosophies, and, you know, we all our knowledge begins with wisdom. You know, our inquisitiveness that leads to us discovering kind of breakthroughs and figuring out the occurrence of a disorder or a neurodiversity, and how often it pops up in, say, your particular society. This begins with something you notice because you are you, because you have that that angle, because you see the world in that way. And certainly it works this way with neurodiverse people and the people who kind of take care of them. As I said, mostly parents, teachers, employers. And yeah, I feel like that's moved the entire movement, and our own desire to kind of make something of ourselves and help neurodiverse people to make something of themselves. This is very much a product of its time. I mean, just think, like 50 years ago, where would we be? This would be maybe the height of Bruno Bettelheim, you know, like the idea that it was the mother's fault that a child had turned out neurodiverse, not that it was even a bad thing, but, you know, they're taken from the parents, they're restrained, they're electroshocked while they're conscious. I mean, we've come so far in so little time. And I believe the result of that is trying to catch up in the way that we might catch up a person's mind by helping neurodiverse people into society so that we can start giving it, you know, help society get what it's been missing out on all this time. Yeah, I feel like we should move on if that's okay.
Oh.
Thank you. And here we have a quote that all of you, I'm sure, have heard 1,000 times. I mean, if not in the last year, then maybe since this conference began, because this is what it all comes down to. It comes down to our own participation and our own ability to give something. You know, yesterday, I think it is, yeah, it's still yesterday in Ireland, when Judy Singer was talking about biodiversity, I think I was actually thinking the same thing. Like, around the same time, in fact, that, you know, this is a natural occurrence. Neurodiversity isn't, you know, God's mistake or anything. This is something that has come out of our ecosystem. You know, this is something that has grown like the trees, and, you know, this is something that our world has always developed around. It just so happens that we class it this way at this time. And I mean, as I say, this program and this kind of work being a product of its time is, I mean, it comes down to the root of the neurodiversity movement, which is that we're not kind of, I suppose, going out and trying to be different, but like, I suppose society has shaped in a very specific, in fact, kind of weird way, especially from our perspective. You know, every society is weird in its own way. And that weirdness and that chaos is something that we focus on quite a bit. We even have like, I think we have an entire mini course on chaos theory and the ramifications and the way that may kind of in an intertextual way work into the occurrence of neurodiversity. You know, I'm talking about the natural phenomenon of it. And yeah, certainly I see entire ecosystems in the people we work with. I mean, like, I'm not just talking about the unusual, you know, guerrilla style that they've put together everything that an adult needs to know, but I believe that a lot of the people we work with are polymaths. Like, take for example, one of our workers I was talking to today. He's in Texas. He didn't really go through the school system. I think he was disadvantaged in much the same way as I am. But he came to us, he didn't understand what academic literature was. It's been about a year now, and I mean, he cites like, you know, like he teaches the stuff. I mean, he knows exactly where to go to get the most up-to-date information. And you know, if I say like, you know, we need this to be a little more scholarly, and he might be talking about a physical phenomenon like pop culture or something. And of course, it's a little difficult to find not just pop culture in academia, but like, again, the really obvious stuff, like you know, like how do friends meet, you know, how do the first like 3 or so conversations go, like how do you slowly develop that rapport? These are the very basic things of life, but it's really unusual to say see literature on them because of course, academia focuses on either extremely specific things or, you know, say what different parts of the brain are doing. It's thought of as not an academic field, even though, in my opinion, academia would benefit enormously from these kind of base level things, which certainly have been recorded, you know, in the early 20th century, like when psychology was getting on its feet, but. I think we need updates because society has changed, and that's something we try to contribute to with a combination of you know, the academic literature and a few examples from life or from, you know, more trusted publications. We kind of we put together these different, albeit trustworthy sources, whether they come from news or like, you can actually find, you know, stuff written by experts in certain magazines. Another example would be a worker I actually hired. He's a friend of mine, and you know, he's this writer who I just found out is fluent in Italian. That was weird because I'm fluent in Italian as well. So now we can speak in Italian. He's this excellent cabaret performer. You know, he can sing. Turns out he's a comedian as well, and he's quite an accomplished one. You know, he's had reviews in like the major papers here. But of course, he has ADHD, and no one realizes this. It's another example of, I suppose, the way neurodiverse people can be overrated, and that's why they miss out on those lessons. You know, no one tells them these things because they think the neurodiverse person already knows them, and that's how a lot of us miss out on the lessons of early adulthood. Yeah, I mean, another part, incidentally, of just the beautiful things that are happening here would be in the community. I was talking about the grassroots movement of neurodiverse people advocating for themselves. And that, in my opinion, is the most important bit, because as I say, you know, you can, I suppose you can recruit neurodiverse people and teach them to be academics. You can't, you know, recruit academics and teach them to be neurodiverse people. Like, and of course, you know, the people who come to us are blank slates because they're surprised so often about what they know and what they don't know, which means they're coming to us with a very precise understanding of what neurodiverse people need, the knowledge that they need in the workplace. And the most obvious reason and the most important reason that they know this stuff is because they're neurodiverse. They've been through the experience, and that is many times more valuable than, for example, you know, a qualitative study that's been conducted in one university in you know, one little pocket of, for example, we're in Melbourne, Australia. It's the corner of the world, you know. We're as far as you can get from global superpowers without going into space, really. I mean,
You want to talk about something?
Yeah, I suppose I want to point out that, oh, okay, let's move on then to, of course, this is us. We're running the program. Autumn was meant to be speaking to you about this today, or in fact tonight if you're in Ireland. She's just brilliant at this. Like, she kind of set up the design, the premises of the of what we do, and she came to us with, of course, that that polymath's worth of knowledge. You know, she knows exactly how to put a site together. I think she has vast experience in fashion as well. Like, so she knows exactly how to make it look as appealing as possible, which certainly is good for the neurotypical people we want to teach things, because, you know, we have a lot of curiosity from employers and especially parents who really want to know how they can help and how they can, for example, get their kid into work, or at least make their own lives easier, certainly. Autumn's kind of, she's been here from the beginning, and before that, she set up the neurodiversity kind of communities that I was talking about just before. Not only did this happen online, where a lot of the community has sprouted up, but in my opinion, the most amazing thing is that she kind of brought it into the real world. So we have this autism community in Melbourne, quite big. All these people know each other. There are dozens of them. All of a sudden, they're having events in each other's houses, these things that have been organized online. There are these people who have a lot of trouble with social skills and they don't know where to learn. They're learning from each other, and they're really quite excellent at it now. They've grown enormously. And then you have me. Of course, communications was my thing. after I got kicked out of school, I became a journalist, and I kind of did that. I got myself into the wild situations a journalist finds themselves in, and I very quickly had to learn how to talk well and get myself into places that generally someone doesn't want you to be in, but others want you very much to be in. So I suppose that taught me diplomacy, and that helped me a lot when I moved here to Melbourne from the countryside. And I always advocated not just for myself, but for other people in the neurodiversity community, particularly the ones who just found out that they or especially their child had the condition. And that's how I found my way here. Then, are we at the end of the slideshow?
I pressed the wrong button, sorry.
Yeah, that happens to me all the time.
Sorry, Peter.
But yeah, we were bragging about ourselves. That's quite okay. Yeah, I mean, that's essentially me. Like, I think Autumn's the same as well. You know, I've always been drawn toward things that they told us we wouldn't be able to do. I got my diagnosis in the early 90s. You know, I have the document saying that, you know, I was developmentally disabled, and, you know, some other things, some words that we can't repeat anymore. And that kind of informed not only, I suppose, my formative years, but the way that I was treated and the way I was educated. But one thing I really want to point out is that the immediate community around me, you know, my parents and their friends, the friends I developed, they wanted me to have a regular life and the ability to choose what kind of life I had. And I believe that's the only reason I'm here. I had the opportunity, I had the community that was willing to help me. And not only is that the kind of thing we try to develop for our people, but that's the community that we've stepped into. You know, that's the neurodiversity community that not only do we recruit from, but that is growing on its own. You know, we've planted the seed of the neurodiversity community in Melbourne, and we can pretty much just let them go at this point. You know, they've formed their own relationships. Some of them are actually in romantic relationships. They have become friends. You know, they have this incredible rapport, and they have gotten together and done things that they told they would never do. So that's something we try to, I suppose, kind of bottle and offer to anyone who needs it.
Do you want to talk about some of the courses?
Yeah, definitely. The courses, and I'll try to briefly touch on the people who helped us out with these as well, because there are some pretty incredible things happening here. Yeah, we have of course, a broad diversity of courses because we need to teach a little bit of everything. The organizational skills, this is our flagship. We have 7 courses, the organizational skills now. My way into the company was actually kind of testing out the first one. This was a way to be organized. In fact, it's called Be Organized, and it kind of teaches you from the ground up, you know, because we have the executive functioning issues, we need to, I suppose, work out how we time things, you know, how we can give ourselves a sense of time and how long we've been doing something, where we need to be and when, to become aware of the people around us. And these things can be taught, and that's what we do. In fact, it even goes a little bit into the etymology of organization, and, you know, how it was the art of engineering a church organ with these many gigantic parts. But once you knew how to do it, you just did it quite easily. And these became family businesses, you know, things you learned from your community, in fact, from your father or whatever. Positive psychology. This one, not only is it popular, but I think it's quite crucial for neurodiverse communities because it's easy to brood. You know, when we get together and we form those communities, one of the pitfalls is that if you spend too much time online, you can become disinhibited. You can, you know, not only become a little more pessimistic about the world and the people in it, and forget that there's, you know, a face behind the screen and a person with a heart just like you. But you begin to feel that way about yourself if you're not getting out enough. And the positive psychology is not only our way of encouraging you to take care of yourself proportionally and, you know, with the moderation that is built into most people and that we may not necessarily have in our instincts. But yeah, it encourages growth as well, which is a really crucial thing to teach people who may rely on routine. Grief as well has been extremely important because so many of our people have lost something recently, and it's little things in ways that you don't necessarily think about. You know, of course, there's family, and a lot of the time it's pets. Turns out a lot of us have pets. You know, they seek out that that contact, and a lot of them have benefited enormously from having a dog or a cat or something else. Even like, I remember I had guinea pigs a couple of years ago, and I really was devastated when I lost them. They lived long lives and happy lives. And, you know, when they passed, it was just like losing one of my relatives. You know, these people, I call them people, these animals become just as important a source of contact and, you know, the oxytocin that most people depend on as, you know, as close family, because we may not develop the relationships that others have as quickly, certainly, because we either miss the cues or especially because we may not be able to give them out. And the relationships course is actually quite big. There are 3 of them. So it begins with friendships. We kind of explain the very nuanced world of making friends and developing rapport. And like neurodiversity, it happens in as many ways as there are people. And we, not only do we work around that, but we find the common threads, like, you know, the places where the people meet up. And in fact, research has been really good for this. Sociological research and psychological research, it really has had all the answers. Because while most people make their friends and their relationships and in fact their jobs through friends and family, some people whom we serve have none of that. So we find the next examples along. It's, for example, a hobby, a meetup for a hobby, whether it be you know, in the city at 7 o'clock at night or in your local park or whatever. We encourage people to explore, and we do that in a very delicate way because we ourselves have been through a lot of awkward situations. So we know the pitfalls that may not, well, in fact, I can say they do not occur to people who are neurotypical and put together these courses. So the next one after that is dating, actually. And that's, in my opinion, quite a bit easier because, again, you know, relationships are all different, but we have a very organized way of doing it. And I think it's really easy to teach a neurodiverse person that because there are hard and fast rules. The one after that is sex, and same thing again. It's easy to teach neurodiverse people sex ed because you know, there are a few stereotypes going around that they may not understand boundaries, but you can teach them boundaries, just like you teach anyone else boundaries. You know, there are so many social movements now, particularly social justice movements, which are very much peripheral to what we do. There's a massive intersection between the neurodiversity community and communities that are focusing on consent at the moment. And, you know, how do we teach people how to seek it out? How do we normalize this? And the answer is, all you have to do is tell a person how. And that's what we do. Andrew, how are we doing?
I think we're pretty much at time. So I was just going to wrap it up with thank you very much, Peter. That was just amazing. And for anyone who's interested, this is the address of the Be Your Best Academy, and we'll pass back to you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Gemma.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Andrew, and thank you so much, Peter. We're delighted to have you share your thoughts on life skills and social cues. It's extremely interesting and very informative. And it's great to explore the area of neurodiversity from a grassroots and a lived perspective, and to do that with you here today. So thanks so much for joining us.